Okay, so tonight we're going to start in on monetary unit sampling. And monetary unit sampling is specific to auditing. Classical sampling, you can use that for almost anything. But monetary unit sampling is specific to auditing, and it has some real advantages in certain situations that make it very attractive. The big one is that if there's not too many errors, you don't expect there to be too many errors in the sample, that you can get a much smaller sample size and have the same level of confidence. And the testing really is what drives up the price of an audit. The testing is a big number. So if you can get, up to the 95% level, taking a sample size of 80 items instead of 210, it's a huge savings. And it's not the savings for you, it's savings for the client and everything else. So it can be a very efficient type of sampling. It's not used in all situations. We'll talk about that as it goes on. But it's one of those, it's a type of auditing that is specific to, any type of sampling that's specific to auditing. So you won't see this in an auditing class, I'll put it that way. Okay. So overview of monetary unit sampling. So we have these items. Here's the book value items. The cumulative total is, as you go on, you add these things up. So the cumulative total is going to be those two. You go to the next one, it'll be three. Just keep going down, digging down here. So the total value of this is 5,000, and it just keeps building up in this cumulative total thing that we're going to have here in the middle. Okay. Monetary use sampling. We're going to have a sample size of 5 items will be selected. Okay, so this is how many items we're going to have are 5. So here's what it does. It says, okay, here's what we're going to do. There's $5,000 worth in this thing. We're going to break it up into 5 equal chunks. We have 5 items, and we're going to pick one item from each they call interval. We're going to talk about that, but each of those chunks, we're going to break it into each of those chunks, and we're going to pick one item from each one, and that one item is going to represent that entire $1,000. So it's sort of like this. So the book value is 5,000 divided by 5 items. Equals $1,000. So each of these will be broken up into kind of like $1,000 chunks. These are called intervals. And from each one of these, we're going to take one item. One item from each one of these. And say that that represents the entire interval. So we're going to total of 5 of them. 5 items, but 1 from each interval. Okay. Let me get rid of this stuff. So we're going to look for the item using this cumulative total. This differently. We're going to look for the items that cross the first $1,000. So which item crosses the first $1,000? The cumulative.
Item 2.
Close. Which one goes
Oh,
over?
wow. Hello. 3.
Okay. So this one is going to be the first one that we're going to pick. Oh, I'm sorry. Find the sample interval. It was 1,000. I should. Okay, so the first one we're going to pick is item number 3. Now we're going to try to find the item that crosses the second one. So at $2,000, which one crosses the $2,000 mark? So on this cumulative total, which one goes over 2,000?
The number 6.
Yep. Which one goes over 3,000?
7.
7. Oops. Again. And 4,000. 9. 10. Okay, so now we have our sample. So we have item 3. Maybe what columns down, I guess. No, I'll get rid of this. So items 3, 6, 7, 9, 10. So these will be the items that we will pick, and these are the first $1,000 chunk will be item number 3. The next one will be item number 6. So we're just taking one item and saying, okay, that one item is going to represent that entire interval. Okay, so coming down here, let's take first one was item 3. Okay, so we audit over the book. Okay, so let's take a look. So the first, this one, the item, so the book value, excuse me, the audit value was 600 and the book value was 600. So this is just 600 over 600. Which is just 1. Ooh, the spacing here very well. Times the interval. 1,000. And this will equal our projected value, which in this case is just 1,000. And the projected misstatement is 0. Man, did I goof this up? Okay, now, and so this one you would, this is kind of what you'd expect, right? Everything is okay. The The audit and the book amount are in agreement, so that's fine. I'm gonna teach you guys how to be lazy. So, important skill. So going to item 6. Item 6, the book value is 560. Scratch that. The audit value is 560. The book value is 800. So this is 560. We should color code coordinate these better. Okay, now this one does not come out to 1,000. So 560 divided by 800. Seven times 1,000 was 700. So what this is sort of like, it's sort of like the ratio. We did the classical sampling with the ratio estimation. It's kind of like that. So you're just taking one item and doing the ratio estimation for that interval using one item. So one item is the ratio for that interval, and that's what we're going to get a projected value. And then if it's different, then we're going to have a misstatement. I think this next one, okay. Next one is 7. So 7 we had 450, and this is 450. So they're both 450, so we are okay. Number 9. $300 and 750. So 300 and 750. Okay. Whatever that is. 400. So that interval, only 400 of it is good. The rest of it, the 600 is a misstatement. And 10, these are both 900. Okay. We're going to have to focus on the total misstatements. We could do it for this one too. Total projected value. $4,100. And the projected misstatement is 900. Any questions on anything? So that's kind of the basic idea behind it. We're going to do one more thing tonight on it, but I want you to notice one of the really, a couple of really great things about it, and why it's a good one for auditing in some situations. Wait a minute, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. We always pick the one that crosses the higher interval, the interval when it goes across the higher interval. So usually that's a larger item that we're more interested in. But it's even better than that. I keep clicking on the wrong thing. I'm sorry. What I got to do again. It's even better than that, because notice that if the item gets big enough, if the item is over $1,000, it's 100% certain that it's going to get picked. So if management, the more they cook the books, if they are cooking the books, if they're making things look larger, the more that they cook the books, the more likely it is it's going to be caught. And at some point, it's going to be 100% sure that it'll get caught. Because if they cook the books, up over $1,000, and for any given account, it's 100% certain that account is going to get picked. Even if they spread it out over a lot of accounts. Well, if you get enough accounts, it's going to be more likely that those are going to be the ones that crosses the interval. So the more that management increases the value of an account, any given in the sample, the more likely it is it'll be picked. I gotta sneeze. Maybe not. Okay. I had a squirrel get in my basement. And I'm in my basement. I had a squirrel get in my basement. I was working on stuff down here, and I hear some scratching. I look around, and sometimes you have birds come down our chimney in here, and they just kind of fall out to the bottom. So I open up the door and expect a bird to come flying out. It happens like once every 4 years or something. Nothing comes out. Like, oh, okay. So I just go keep working. And I went in the back of where we have our washing machine, and there was a squirrel sitting on the washing machine. Just sitting there, loitering. Okay. So anyway, so this is a good method because the more management increases it, the more likely it's going to get caught. And at some point, it'll be 100% sure it's going to get caught. Now, there are times when this method isn't good, as you can imagine. And that is things that management tries to make smaller. Things like expenses, things like accounts payable. If they're purposely trying to make things small, it won't get caught. So this is not the method to use. And if they make it small enough, they go down to 0. Well, there's no chance of it being picked. So it's only good for when management is overstating, not for understatements. Okay. All right, let's go to the second page. Now, on this first page, I gave you the sample of 5. On the second page, we get into how do we pick that sample? How do we know how many items to pick? And there's a formula for that. Okay. So here is the sample size calculations. And it's a formula. It's not the easiest formula, but it's still easier than classical sampling. Okay, so what we're going to do is kind of plug the numbers in here. Excuse me, population book value is 1.6 million. So that's this number. The titleable misstatement is 1.2 million. No, it's not. 120,000. I was lying. And the expected misstatement is 5,000. Okay, so this is, now we have to grab 2 things that are not so easy. Reliability factor and expansion factors. Okay. Now at 5%, excuse me, we had to pick those 2 factors, and they're at the bottom of the page in this weird looking thing here. So we're going to have the reliability factor at 0 overstatements. So come down here, reliability factors. Zero overstatements at 5%. Be 3. And we need an expansion factor. Expansion factors are easy because there's only 1 row. And so for that 5%, it's 1.6. And now it's kind of crunching the numbers. And I think I'll do the bottom first. Okay, so I don't have a spot for it. Came up with 42.86. I'm in a bad cell here. Put it over here. Okay, so the sample size is 42.86. Now we can't take 0.86 of an item. So we'll round it up to 43 items. By the way, this method, you round it off to the nearest whole number. I would tell you to always round it up, just in practice. Because if you don't want to go into court saying you round it down, for one item, it's probably worth it not to have that discussion. So I would say, in this case, we're going to round it up anyways, but I would say always round it up. Oops, so we'll say make that 43. All right. Total book value. That divided by 43. And this one we can $1,600,000 divided by 43. 37,209. You probably leave it there if you want. You could also put the cents in there. So that would be the interval. So you pick 43 items and you go every 39,209. And the second one would be whatever it is. 74, 418.60 or something.
How did you get the 43 items?
When you do this out here, it should come out to 42.86. Did you get this or no?
Multiplying the
Yes. Let me do it here. Let's see here. Yeah, so the top part would have came out to 4,800,000. Oops. And the bottom uh, 120 minus 5,000 times 1.6 comes out to be 8,000. So 120 minus 8,000 is that.
Okay, I see what I did there. I multiplied the 120,000 by was it 8 million?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I multiplied instead of subtracted.
Yeah, it's weird. And by the way, this is one of those weird things too, that it's an important part of this, the expected misstatement. If the expected misstatement is big enough, you shouldn't use this method. This method is usually used for those things that they don't have very many errors. you'll notice that the bigger that misstatement gets, because it's subtracted, that the numbers can get very large if that expected misstatement is big. Classical sampling, if you expect the misstatement to be off or whatever, it's not that, you can still do it. You can still use it, it's not that much of a problem. And notice that if you get the expected misstatement is off more than the tolerable misstatement, it's going to be infinity, right? So, this expected misstatement is very important. Oftentimes this is 0 or a very low number when you use this method. If the expected misstatement is high, this is not a good method to use. Let's do one more. I think there's one more here, isn't there? This up a little. Now be careful here because this is the 10%. Okay, and again, I came out with 113.24. The real method is you take 113. I'm going to put 114 in. Just again, the whole reason why you're doing this is so if you get dragged into court, you don't have to, back up for it. And so I would just say that round it up to 114. The true method is 113. And if you use that, that's fine. That's actually the way it's supposed to be. So then we have 2,500,000. I'm gonna say 114. If you use 113, it'll be a little bit larger number. If you use 113, it would be close, same. Okay, so I'm gonna say 114. And again, the true method would say 113. I use 114 just because be a little more conservative, I guess, with yeah, well, you just want to have to explain in court that you rounded down. They'll say, why'd you round down? It was part of the method. Why'd you round up? Taking one more item is worth not having that conversation. Okay. And again, this expected misstatement, a lot of times this will be zero. It's when you don't expect any errors in it. But if there are expected ones, it should be small. And again, if these got big enough, if this got up to 40,000, this will go to zero, this goes to infinity. So it really is for, this method really is for when you don't expect to have a lot of errors. This method is very efficient. If you expect to have a lot of errors or a lot of dollar amount errors, it's not very good. But again, it is good if you don't think there's going to be big errors, but you suspect that management might be trying to cook the books, because the more they try to cook the books, the more likely it is to get caught. And you saw here, if they cook the books on any given item to 22,000 or 23,000 or whatever, it's 100% sure it's going to get caught. And even if they spread it out over a number of accounts, so I know we'll just add a few $100s to each additional account. Well, that makes those accounts more likely to cross that interval. So the more likely they're caught, anytime that they would try to overstate an account, it makes that account more likely to be picked. So, for overstatements, this is a really good method. And again, the more they cook the books, the more likely it is to get caught. Any question on that? Okay. Well, let's stop there. Nothing to turn in this week. We're not done with this, and we're not done with the with the chapter 6 one. So we'll take a break on it. I don't think there's another sample size one. No, and this gets kind of wacky down here. We'll do that next week. Okay. Okay, so this is on page 4, I believe. All right, there are some rules. Or monetary sampling, monetary unit sampling. Incremental allowance, that's what we're going to get into here. It's incurred when there are misstatements are detected in the sample items. In other words, sampling error increases when more misstatements are detected. It is only used when the value of the misstated item is less than the interval. Okay. Overstatements. Are the only thing we're looking for. Understatements are ignored. So it's kind of like fishing. You know, we're only looking for overstatements. If we find an understatement, that's not what we're fishing for. If we find an understatement, we ignore it. We say everything's fine. So if it's an overstatement, that's what we're looking for. If it's an understatement, we're not looking for understatements. This method does not address understatements, period. So we ignore it. It's kind of like you go fishing and you're trying to catch fish and you pull in a boot. You know, it's not what you're looking for. So you throw it back. Well, you don't throw it back in, probably throw it in the garbage. But point being is that you're not looking for boots. You are trying to get a fish. So same thing here. You know, we're looking for overstatements. We find an understatement, we don't do anything with it. Now, there's also a part of this that is really kind of, you got to kind of think about a little bit. If the misstated item has a book value that is equal to or larger than the interval. So in other words, we're talking about things that are 100% going to get picked because they are bigger than the interval. Whatever the interval is, they're bigger. Then the misstatement is the difference between the book value and the audit value. And these are not included in the incremental allowance. And I'll explain why in a second. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do some of these. No, spacing here is a little funny. Oops, it's even funnier. So here we have a book value of that. And we found some of these errors. So these are the ones that are error. And by the way, a lot of times when you're taking the CPA exam, especially, they're only going to show you the errors usually, because there might be 100 things, and that you're interested in those ones that are off. I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. Okay, so we're gonna go. Now this first one is kind of the normal one that we're used to doing. Just so you kind of recall that we take the audit amount divided by the book value. And we times it by the interval. And that'll give us a projected value, but we're more interested in the projected misstatement. But let's go ahead and do this. So 14, do the document cam here. So 14 divided by 20. You pay $2 for a calculator. Okay, so 14,000, 20,000. 40,000. Okay, so the projected value is 28,000. So this is a normal, misstatement that we had. Projected misstatement is 12,000. And notice that this is an overstatement. Right? The audit value is 14,000, they're saying it's 20,000, so this is an overstatement.
Question, where did we get the 12,000?
The 40,000 minus the 28.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah, so that interval is, here, let me put this in there. So the interval is 40,000. So if we're saying that interval really is like worth 28, then the misstatement's gonna be that. And this is included in the incremental allowance. This is what normally you would be looking for. This is an overstatement. Notice it's less than the interval. And it's going to be including the incremental allowance. And again, we'll see how we actually work that out later on. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Next one's pretty straightforward too, like 2,400, 3,000. This is an overstatement. So I'm going to copy this up here just because of spacing. Ah. Okay, this is 32. This is 8, I think. And again, this is with incremental allowance. This one can kind of throw people a little bit. But notice that it really is just another overstatement, right? They say that we're 1,700, we say it's worth 0. You know, we're saying it's 0, they're saying it's 1,700. 0 times anything is 0. Okay, so these first three are kind of straightforward, run-of-the-mill, normal, like we've been doing before, kind of things. Something is different on number 4. What is it? What's different on number 4 than on 1, 2, and 3?
The amount is higher than the interval.
This is an understatement.
Did you say interval?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. The audit value is 2,600 and the book value is, so this is an understatement,
Because the book value is less than the audit value.
higher.
Oh, higher. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, oops. So it's kind of like this. This is, it's higher than that. So we ignore this. So the projected value would be 40,000. Oops. Misstatement would be 0. And it would not be included because it's not misstated according to this method. So if the book value, excuse me, if the audit value is higher than the book value, it's an understatement. We ignore it. If this method is not meant to find those, and when it does, we just ignore it. So again, that's one of those things that's kind of strange. If we're, as an auditor, whenever you come across something that's wrong, you go, hey, this is wrong. You don't say it just like that, but you know what I mean. And so, you see that you find this one that has an error in it, and because it is an understatement, using this method, you don't do anything with it. It's not supposed to catch those, and if we do catch it, we throw it back. So it is not meant to catch understatements, and it completely ignores it when it does catch it. Just acts as if it's a, not a problem. Okay. Down here, this one is the tricky ones. And it's tricky because of this. The book value, this is the book value. I'm going to give a little room here. So this is the book value, and this is the interval. I gotta redo this one. So here's the book. And here's the interval. So notice the book value is higher than the interval. This is one of those ones that we talked about a little bit, that it's guaranteed to get picked, right? If the book amount is bigger than the interval, you're guaranteed that you are going to pick this item. It's 100% guaranteed. But now notice something that's happening here. This interval is really based on the book values. And this is the book value. In sampling, we take a small amount and project it over the larger population, right? Take a few items, project it over the entire population. In this one, you'll notice it's doing just the opposite. This is taking something that has a book value of 44,000. And if we go through our regular process, it'll be scrunching it down to a $40,000 interval. It'll be reducing the actual error. So let's, I tell you what, let's go ahead and work it out like we normally would. And then I'll kind of show you why it's wrong to do it that way. Okay, so here I'm going to show you the wrong way first. What did you learn in class today? Well, we learned how to do it the wrong way. Why do you teach you that? Oh, he's a knucklehead. All right, so if we were to do this normally, we'd say, okay, we'll take this. Oops, divided by 44,000. Times the interval. And, ooh, that's not right. Okay, so 11,000 divided by 44,000, I think is 25%, right? So this comes out to, oops. It's going to 10,000, I think. And so the misstatement would be 30. So this is wrong, what I'm showing you here. This is the wrong way. Oh, wow, that's weird looking. I'll leave it like that, just so we really know it's wrong. If you look at this item, okay, so here's the audit amount. If you compare the audit to the book amount, how much is what is this thing actually off by? What's the actual misstatement? What is it actually misstated by, this item, number 5? You audit it, you say it's worth 11,000. Your company says it's worth 44,000. What's the actual misstatement on this thing? Oh, take a guess. What is this actually misstated by?
33,000.
Yep. Yeah, so here, I'll show you here. 33. You know, it's, they're saying it's 44,000. We're saying it's 11,000. Ooh, got too much in there. Hold on. So notice if you look up here, you know, this is the actual misstatement is 33,000. It actually, this up here reduces the misstatement. Why? Because it's projecting it over a $40,000 interval when the item is actually bigger than the interval. So when the book value is bigger than the interval, you take the actual loss. Their actual misstatement. Oops. So we don't do it this way. Why? Because we know this thing is misstated by 33,000. It's not misstated by 30, it's misstated by more than that. So its actual is 33,000. So whenever the audit, scratch that, the book value is larger than the interval, we take the actual misstatement, which is the difference between those. So we'll get it one down here too. This is not included with the incremental allowance. And I'll explain that too. The incremental allowance is there because there could be something else in the interval that is misstated. Right? If we come up here, you know, the book value is less than the interval. There's other things obviously in that interval. Excuse me. Same thing here. There's other things in this interval. You know, we got 3,000 of it. There's another, what, 37,000 of it. And same thing here. We got 1,700 of it, and there's another, whatever it is, 38,300 in there. So there's other things in these intervals that could go wrong. And that's what leads to the incremental allowance. There could be, there's more things that could be wrong. Notice down here, nothing else could go wrong. This thing covers the entire interval. So nothing else could go wrong down here. The entire interval is taken up by this loss. Now, the misstatement is 33,000. You know, we just take the actual amount, but it, you know, the entire amount is going to be the misstatement. Okay, and we're gonna do the same thing down. I tell you what, let me be quiet and see if you can figure out this one down here. And again, you know, you'll notice that the book value is more than, in fact, this one would cover 2 intervals. Right? Yeah, at least 2. It might cover 3. Okay, so here we will have our projected misstatement will be adding all these up. So 12 plus 8. Mr. Calculator. $118. You may want to check that to make sure.
I got the number.
Okay, so 118. So this is the projected misstatement. So the best estimate of the accounts receivable is what, 800,000.
I don't know if I missed something, but it's a projected misstatement. I got 86,000. So the 12,000, 8,000, 8,000, then 33,000, and then
The third one's 40,000.
oh my God, I missed that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
So wait here. So this would be $800,000 minus the misstatement of 118. And on this one, you really don't have to know whether it's overstatement or understatement, because it's always for overstatements. There isn't there's no possibility that it's, was it 682 maybe? I think that's it.
Yes, it is.
So this would be our estimate of the accounts receivable. And this would be our best estimate of it, what it would be. So this is actually the best estimate. It might be off by more than that, but this is the best estimate as far as what we think it could be. Okay. I think we're going to do part of this one and then we'll come back. We're just going to do this top part here. And I think I'll be quiet and see if you can do these first three items. Find a projected value, correct misstatements, and we can talk about whether it's going to be in the incremental or not. So all we're going to do is these ones here, and we can get this one, projected misstatement. We can get that. And then we'll leave the rest, and we'll stop before we go to the rest of this stuff. So let's see if you can figure out these first 3 items that we found. All right, what did I do wrong? Did something horribly wrong.
That's an understatement.
Yep. This should not be done because this is an understatement. Shouldn't be spelled like that either. This is not a problem. If we were to, there's not a problem with this one at all. Oops, oops, oops. There is no misstatement on this one. And again, this kind of, it kind of goes against our grain as auditors that do that? You know, you find this error and you go, well, so you got to do something with that, right? No, you don't. Not with this method. If it's an understatement, you ignore it. So there actually is no error there. Okay, so the projected misstatement is 10,000 plus 30,000 is 40. Just those two. And are they including incremental allowance? Yeah, neither one of these are bigger than the interval. You know, this is not any bigger than this, so this will be a yes. So this is smaller than that. It'll be included. Because there could be more things wrong. Oops. And this one's a no, just because it's not misstated at all. It's everything's fine with this one, so we would not be putting that in there. There is no misstatement on there, and even if we did put it in, it wouldn't count as anything because we're going to multiply this times something, and 0 times anything would be 0. So, yeah, because this is an understatement, there is no misstatement. There's some confusing arrows. So we'll stop right there. So this is our best estimate as far as what this is misstated by. It's a $6 million account. We've come up that it's off by 40,000. So that's what we're going to start out with anyways. And that's our best estimate. Here's a question for you. How many items are in the sample? Notice we have an interval of 50,000. The book value is 6 million. So how many items were in the sample?
$120.
Yep. Yeah, so there's each interval 50,000. So if you divide 6 million by 50,000, that'll tell you how many items there is. So there's 120. They came up with 3 problems. Actually, there's only 2 problems here, really, out of it. And this is one of those reasons why you use this method, is that out of 120 items, only 2 of them are misstated, or as we call them, you know, that they have overstatements. And if there's few, you know, it probably reduces the sample size quite a bit. So instead of 120, if you're doing classical sampling, maybe instead of 120 items, maybe you have to take 200. Huge amount of work, you know. So this method, you know, if there's not too many errors, this method will save a lot of work. Yeah. So okay, let's stop there. And nothing to turn in this week because we're not done with this. We'll finish this next week. And will we finish this next week? I think so. We'll probably finish both of these next week.